So first, thank you obviously for being here. I'm really glad. We actually had like 80 people that registered for this, which is awesome. And it sounds like people have been really wanting this topic covered. So I'm excited that you're here. A few things about Zoom. Okay, this is being recorded currently. And the reason for that is because this is also going to be available after tonight as a recorded webinar, both on our YouTube channel. Xerces has a YouTube channel if you haven't checked it out yet. It's actually really awesome. I watch videos on there sometimes to learn about what my colleagues are doing. Um, and then also on our Bumblebee Atlas website, we have a train online section, and there's like a Southeast section on there where you can watch this webinar, and we have a couple other webinars on there that are recorded that you can watch at your convenience if you want to go back and say, oh, she explained how to tell those two peas apart, but I just can't remember. It'll be there for you. So it is being recorded. No one's going to see your face because, as you can see, your cameras are off. We just do that for big groups. There is chat here for you to use. You can chat about, whatever. We'll see it. But we have a Q&A feature that is going to be more specific to actual questions that you have. So if you want to ask a question about something I covered or something you want clarified or something to go over again, you can use the Q&A feature, which should be at the bottom and should be available for you. And we have a lovely guest today who's going to be helping us out. Michelle, if you want to introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Hey everyone, my name is Michelle Toshak. I coordinate the Montana Bumblebee Atlas. I'm in Livingston, Montana, about an hour north of Yellowstone, and I will be helping with the Q&A and answering anything you put in the chat. So I'm going to turn my video off and let Avery take it away. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. Michelle, by the way, has about double the amount of bees that we have to identify, so she's also great at bumblebee identification, especially in the West. So that's the Q&A feature. She's going to be looking at that as we go, and she'll be answering questions, but then she's also going to save some questions if there's ones that are going to be really relevant to everyone or something that she thinks maybe we could cover again or talk about in a little more depth. So just know that we're working on answering your questions as they come in. I also want to say there is closed captioning. You should be able to see that little CC button at the bottom. That should be available for you if that'd be helpful. I think that's all I really have for Zoom. I don't think this is going to go the full hour and a half, but it might depending on how many good questions and discussions we get into. And I should introduce myself too, I forgot to do that. My name is Avery Young, and I'm a conservation biologist with the Xerces Society, and I am the coordinator of the Southeast Bumblebee Atlas. And our range for the Southeast Bumblebee Atlas is Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. That's the region that we're in. But like I said, I'm glad to see there's also folks in some of our neighboring states, and a lot of this will be really, really relevant to you as well. So without further ado, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I really do need to thank our partners. I currently am the only Xerces staff in the southeastern US. And as you can imagine, that's a really big range to cover, and that's a lot of local knowledge. And so I work really closely with our partners to organize events and to get our volunteers engaged and to find places to do good surveys. And they also help us locate funding. And so we really, really, really couldn't do this without them. They also help run some of our events. And we are supported by funding from a Working Lands for Wildlife grant through Quail Forever, Pheasants Forever, and they're the ones who make this possible. So I work for the Xerces Society for Invertebrate Conservation, and we are an organization with a mission to protect invertebrates and the habitats that support them. We're a science-based nonprofit, really founded in the 1970s, so we're really quite cutting edge for invertebrate conservation. The main office is based in Portland, but we now have staff all over the U.S. working toward the same mission. And we have an endangered species program that is the program that I work under, and we gather data to fill data gaps about rare species. And we use that data to help inform the management of these species, and we try to advocate for them. And a lot of our endangered species projects are run by community science, which is part of the reason you're here, which is great. So we have a bumblebee team, we have a freshwater mussel team, there's a firefly team, there's western monarch team, there's also a rare butterfly group there. And then our native pollinator program works with private landowners to enhance and create pollinator habitat on private lands, and they do a lot of like on the ground restoration work. They're amazing. We have a pesticide team of a bunch of very smart people that understand a lot about chemistry, and they research the impacts of pesticides on all these invertebrates that we know and love. And then we have policy and advocacy folks that really they work within all of our other programs to make sure that we're, reaching our goals and that we're bringing our research to the policy sphere. So we all work toward this main mission, and we're really proud of the work that we do. And if you want to learn any more about other Xerces programs, you should check out the Xerces website, and you can listen to our podcast, and you can learn more about all the work that's going on and see how else you can get involved. We are a donor supported organization, and we're supported by a really amazing community of members who make all the work that we do possible. And so if anyone here is a member, I just really want to shout you out and say thank you. And if this is something that you're interested in joining, you can do that here. And we have ways to join in terms of donating and becoming a member, but also we have ways to join in terms of your time, by joining some of our community science projects. So that is all we are very grateful for all of that. Okay, so this today technically is part two. Part one was the bulk of the how do you actually participate in the Bumblebee Atlas training, which might not be relevant to everyone here today if you're more tuning in just to learn about bumblebees if you don't live in our Bumblebee Atlas region right now. But if you are someone who wants to watch part one, it is recorded, it's available. It was 2 weeks ago today, so it's on our website already, and feel free to check that out and watch it as you're training for the season. So that was part one. And part two today, I'm not going to talk really about the Bumblebee Atlas at all. I'm just going to talk more about bumblebee identification and specifically the species that we have here in the Southeast. And yeah, I'm excited. I think this is going to be a lot of information if you haven't already learned about, bumblebee anatomy or how to tell species apart. So feel free to take some notes, but also like I said, this is going to be recorded, so feel free to come back and watch any of this. And also, it's really tricky. Like, I'm going to be pointing out the obvious differences and characteristics amongst species, but it's also tricky, and there's species and individual bees that I get tricked up on all the time. So we're all constantly learning. It's a humbling experience to try to identify bumblebees. And those of us at Xerces on the Bumblebee Atlas team, we get a lot of data sent into Bumblebee Watch throughout the field season, and then we spend pretty much all winter looking through photos of bumblebees and identifying them to species. And that's how we've all learned so much about identification. And it's been really rewarding to learn a lot. So that's really where my knowledge comes from. So let's start with bumblebee anatomy. There's a lot you could learn about bumblebee anatomy, and I'm not going to cover all of it. I'm really going to cover the main things that you're going to want to make sure that you know and that you're familiar with, because they're things I'm going to talk about tonight. Okay, so first we have the head of the bumblebee. We all know what the bumblebee head is. It's where the antennae come out, and there's two main places on the head that we're looking for hair color. So hair color is a huge part of bumblebee identification. And in our region, most of the time we're looking at, is the hair black or is the hair yellow? Occasionally we also have this kind of like orange rusty color on some of the abdomen, but on the head we're looking for black or yellow. And sometimes it can be a mix of black and yellow hairs. But we're looking for the face, so that's the front, that's like below the eyes or almost like between the eyes. is the face of the bumblebee and what color is that hair. And then the vertex is like the back of the head. It's almost like where you would imagine there being like the neck. So those are two parts of the head that we're really looking for. What color is the hair? The other really important thing on the head is the cheek length. And so you can see the image on the left is showing you where the cheek of a bumblebee is. And I'm gonna give you some more information about really all of these based on which species we really need these characteristics for. So I'll show you actual photographs of the cheek. But the cheek is also really important for identifying some of our species. Okay, moving on to the thorax. The thorax is it's circular if you're looking at it from top down, and that's where the wings come out, and that's also where the six legs come out. And so what we're looking at on the thorax is, first of all, what color hair is it? Is it all yellow? That can be the case in some of our species. More often, it's yellow with some kind of black marking between the wings. So that could be like a black dot or a black band or a black shape. Sometimes things are more like a specific shape can be seen there. And then also the color underneath the wings on the sides of the thorax can be really important as well. Moving on to the abdomen. So the abdomen is the biggest part of the bumblebee body, and it's made up of segments called tergites. And we shorten tergites to T. So you can see we have T1 through 6 here. And bumblebee females have 6 tergites. Males do have 7. So that's one of the differences between males and females. But remembering T stands for tergite, and they're numeric, starting closest to the abdomen and or closest to the thorax, and then down toward like the tail of the bumblebee would be T6. The other thing that you really want to look at when you have a bumblebee in hand or you have a good photo is the hind leg. So that's like the farthest leg back. And then there's part of that hind leg, that middle segment there, that has a pollen basket on it if it's a female non-cuckoo bumblebee. So you're looking for, is it wide? Is it shiny? And I'm also going to talk more about the pollen basket, but I just want you to see on this illustration of a bee where you could expect to find that pollen basket, or corbicula is the more sciencey name for pollen basket. So that's general bumblebee anatomy. Okay, there's a couple things we should cover. First of all, just some lookalikes. I'm going to go over this pretty quickly, but just know this could stump you more than you might ever believe. So there are some amazing flies out there that are bumblebee mimics. They're hairy, they're yellow and black. They're hanging out in the exact same places as bumblebees. And so how do we tell them apart? The antennae is a good first place to look. So bumblebees have jointed antennae, meaning they have like a notch in their antenna, and they're also very long. They have many antennal segments, whereas fly antennae are short and stubby. Sometimes you can barely see them, or they're just like sticking straight up. Flies also have these big bulging eyes that really take up the majority of their head. Most bumblebees have eyes that are like relatively flat on their head. We do have a few males in our region that have bulging eyes as well. So that's something to keep an eye out for. It's also a good way to tell those species apart from other species. But they maybe have the most fly-like eyes, but they're still not quite so bulging as like taking up their whole head like this in this photo of the fly. Also, flies have 2 wings. So, the image on the right of the fly has folded wings, so it's hard to tell that those are any different than the bumblebee on the left. But if you see it flying, or if you open the wings, you'll see that's only 2 wings. So, yes, fly mimics can be a real challenge. We also have we have other kinds of bees, obviously. There's a lot of bees that are furry and have kind of this black and yellow coloration. Some really common ones are honeybees. I imagine most of you know what a honeybee looks like, but if you don't, they have this kind of golden orange abdomen that's a torpedo shape, and it's hairless on the abdomen. Or maybe it has like really short hairs, but it doesn't look fuzzy like a bumblebee. They also just are, yeah, they're very gold overall. Um, Honeybees, once you see one and you look at it more closely, you'll realize it's not a bumblebee. Carpenter bees are more challenging, and this is one I think a lesson a lot of people have to learn is like catching a carpenter bee, looking at it, maybe even submitting that data, and then realizing, oh, you know what? No, that's not a bumblebee. These look similar to our common eastern bumblebees because their abdomen is mostly black. However, they have a really, really shiny, hairless abdomen. It looks like, no hair, and that's one of the main ways that you can tell it apart. Even the black segments on the abdomens of our bumblebees still are hairy. They're black hair. They're not just like hairless. Also, carpenter bees kind of have this just a thick head. But if you don't know, it's okay. You should definitely still submit your data if you're like, ooh, I'm really not sure. It's a great way to learn, and we're happy to look through your photos and say, oh, you know what, this is not a bumblebee, and then you'll be like, oh, I see, okay, okay, and then maybe you won't submit it next time. It's okay if it takes a while to learn. We really want your data, so don't not submit data just out of fear that you might not have a bumblebee, because we get those all the time. We're not upset about it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about males versus females. So there are a few different ways that we tell them apart. The first is looking at their hair. So females are generally just more well groomed. They have hair that's maybe a little more like buzz cut looking. It's shorter. It's not sticking out in all crazy directions. Whereas male bumblebees, like the one on the right, is though they have a lot of yellow hair. They tend to have they just seem to be more yellow in general, and they have a lot of yellow hair on the face often. They almost have this like orange beard sometimes, and their hair is longer, and they just look a little bit less yeah, well groomed, more shaggy. A a true way to tell a male from a female apart really is the pollen basket. So we talked earlier about this, where you can find it on the bee, and the pollen basket is where the female workers collect pollen to bring back to their nest to feed the larvae, and so they have this bare part of their leg with these pollen catching hairs around it. So it's bare in the middle, but the edge of it does have, longer hairs. That's where they collect pollen. So only females and only non-cuckoo bees have this pollen basket. It's triangular and it's empty and it's shiny. And then the male on the other side, you can see it's a bit thinner. Sometimes it's even much more thin looking than this, but it's really hairy. You can see how hairy that leg is. That's like really obviously not a pollen basket. They're not always that clear. But if you saw a leg that was that hairy, you would say that's definitely not a pollen basket. It's also a little bit more of like a rounded shape. So I'm going to I'll give you another couple examples of this because it can be a little tricky to tell them apart sometimes. So, like I said, females have six tergites, males have seven. This is something you're probably not going to physically count because T6 and T7 are really small. However, sometimes it's like a gestalt thing where you're thinking, oh, you know what, this bee does just look longer. Kind of looks like just has a longer abdomen than the bees I'm used to seeing, which could lead you to believe it was a male. Also, the eye size. So I said most bumblebees have these normal kind of flat eyes, and this is true for males and females. However, if you do catch a bumblebee that has really bulging eyes, then you definitely know it's a male. And this is true for just a couple species that we have here. Finally, if you get stung, you definitely know that you have a female. Males do not have stingers. So those are all some of the key differences. Here's another look at pollen baskets. So the pollen basket can either have pollen on it if the bee was out foraging already and gathered pollen, or it can be empty if they just dropped the pollen off or if they just like got up for the day to start foraging. So if you see a big wad of a colorful substance on a bee's hind leg, that is a full pollen basket. But it can also have, this empty pollen basket. So what I really want you to see with this image is the difference in shape between the two on the left and on the right, that bee is a male. And so on the left, they're triangular, they're bigger, um, And again, it could have pollen or it could be just shiny and open. And then on the right, we have the male that has this thinner leg. It's also just a more rounded shape in general. So, presence or absence of pollen basket helps tell males from females, but this is only true for non-cuckoo bees. So, our cuckoo bees, they don't have workers because they have tricked another species to do their work for them. That's their life cycle. And so no cuckoos have pollen baskets. They don't need to collect pollen. And so we tell cuckoo males from female apart more based on coloration than we would be worried about whether or not it has a pollen basket. But for all other bumblebee species, looking for the pollen basket is really the way that we're telling males from females. So here's a little intro quiz. We have some fun quizzes along the way here tonight. No one's grading you. This is just for gauging for yourself how much you're understanding the content or where you've started, right? Maybe you're brand new to this, and this is just some more images of bees that either have pollen baskets or don't. And these are not cuckoos. I didn't trick you with any cuckoos. These are non-cuckoo bumblebees. So look at each of these bees for a minute and determine whether you think you're seeing a pollen basket or not. So as a reminder, what you're looking for is does the hind leg is it thick? Does it have a triangular shape that almost has like right angles in it? Um, does that hind leg have is it pretty fully hairy or does it have a concave like shiny cup in it? I'll give you one more minute. Okay, here are the results. Everything with a orange box around it does have a pollen basket. So top left, we have a male. It's a really thin hind leg. It looks hairy throughout. Also, look how much like yellow fuzzy hair is on that male's face. Okay, middle top has a pollen basket that's full. That's a dead giveaway. Those are the easy ones. And that pollen can be bright orange like that. It can be yellow. It can be like purple. It could be pink. It really depends what they've been foraging on. But often it's kind of like bright. And that's almost how like the first thing you see on a bee when it has just collected a bunch of pollen. The next one does have a pollen basket. You can see that it's a thick hind leg, it's triangular, and it's hairless, except for those long hairs on the outside that help catch pollen. Bottom left, same thing. It's triangular, it's hairless. You can see it's concave. It has that kind of sharp right angle in it. And then middle bottom, this is another male. So this does not have a pollen basket in it. It does look a little shiny just because the hairs may be sparse or like it got the sun was reflecting off of it. But it's really thin, it's rounded, not a pollen basket. And then our bottom right is again a pollen basket. It's shiny, it's triangular, it doesn't have pollen in it, but that is also a female. So if that was hard, don't worry about it. We've looked at many, many bumblebees that have gotten us to the point to be able to just tell one or the other, but you'll definitely get an eye for it as you go. And again, some are easier to tell than others. So before we jump into actually looking at the species in our region, I just want to talk about how complicated this can be and other ways that you can think about this besides just like this is the way that this one species looks. So first we have to realize there's different castes within each species. There's queens, there's males, and there's workers. And they can each have a different color pattern. Queens can look really different than workers, can look really different than males. They also often are different sizes. So queens are the biggest. You might see them out right now even, and they're the ones that just have, they're larger and they're out earlier. So they have different periods of activity as well. So queens you can see out when the spring ephemerals are blooming now. But and then next are going to emerge the workers, and then at the end are going to emerge males and also a few queens, again, the new queens. So thinking about which caste you're finding, which time of year can also help you identify your bee. But it's also important to note that size and color pattern can vary within the cast. So this is an image from Bumblebees of North America, which is our main reference guide for identifying bumblebees that we all know and love. And you can see how many different morphs there are from the same species. And so if you look at males, this is Bombus perplexus. This is our confusing bumblebee. If you look at males of Bombus perplexus there on the bottom, you can see they can be fully yellow to having an abdomen that's more than half black. So they are just really variable, and when you get one that looks totally weird that you're like, I have not seen this before. It might just be a morph that you haven't seen before. So that's all to say this can be complicated and it just takes time to learn. So I am gonna pause for any questions about anything I covered so far.
Yeah, Avery, there was one in the Q&A that I think would be good to also mention here.
Okay.
Someone was asking about the difference between bumblebees and carpenter bees. How many wings do carpenter bees have?
Carpenter bees also have four wings. Yep. Oh, you answered that. Yes, thanks.
I did. I thought it
That's
would
a
be
good
good to
question.
mention it here. Yeah.
That's great.
And
Yeah,
then
they're really hard to tell apart. I think if you are used to thinking that anything like fuzzy and black and white is a bumblebee, you'll realize that you're seeing a lot of carpenter bees, a lot right now, especially earlier in the season.
there's another one in the Q&A. With
Okay.
all those color pattern morphs listed, are there some that are more common? Is there any way to know which version to expect?
Yeah, there are definitely morphs that are a lot more common. And I would say, so if you get a resource like the Bumblebees of North America, it's gonna let you know which morph is more common, like where you live. But one way I think would be really helpful if you're just learning is to look at our quick guide. We make a quick guide of like the most common morphs you can expect to find. And most of the time you're gonna find that morph. And some of the morphs are really only found in certain regions. Like, for example, that image I showed of, here, let me see if I can go back, of this Bombus perplexus. I've never actually seen a male that's all yellow. And most of the ones that we see are just the maybe three on the right, on the farthest right here. And so knowing that there's different morphs can make it complicated, but most, you're going to get really used to seeing the same ones over and over again. I hope that helps. If you want to know which version to expect, I would look at our quick guide because that's the one you're most likely to see in our region. Yep, shiny hiney, totally. I was gonna say that, but I was like, you know what, they've probably heard that, but thanks for reminding us. Shiny hiney is a good way to remember that it's a carpenter bee. Okay, thank you for the questions. I'm gonna keep on rolling. I'm actually gonna turn on the light in my office since the sun is going down.
Avery, there's one more question in the chat that you might get to later. Um,
Okay.
so it says, my problem is trying to take a picture to be able to ID later. What tips do you have for snapping a picture before it flies away?
Oh yeah, that is a good question. I'm not gonna probably explicitly cover that. I was gonna talk more about like what photos we need, but I think using our Bumblebee Atlas protocol is definitely the best way because you can um, chill bees. So what we do, if you aren't familiar with our Bumblebee Atlas protocol, is we catch bees with a net, we put them in a vial, and then we put those vials on ice in a cooler. And then after like 15 minutes or so, we take them out and take a bunch of photos of them before they've warmed up, and then they fly away unharmed. But it allows us to get tons of different angles. So that is the best way, truly, if you need to get different angles to make sure you are able to identify it. If you're taking a photo just of bees on flowers, it's a lot harder, but I do think one thing that I try to do is instead of trying to get the perfect angle and then taking the photo, I just snap as many photos as I can as I'm going in because sometimes it flies away. Like, yeah, like you said, sometimes it flies away and you realize you don't have any photos. Um, so that's one thing I do. But also, I think knowing exactly which diagnostic characteristics you're looking for can make it easier. So if you say, you know what, I know the one thing I really need is to get a good photo of the thorax and like under the wing, and that's what I'm going to try to get when I have my 1 minute. Just knowing what to look for with each species is can also be helpful. But I think almost no one without like a really fancy camera has mastered getting perfect bumblebee photos while they're just visiting a flower for like a second. So that is challenging. All right. Thanks for the questions. I'm gonna move on. Okay, so I'm going into our species now. So from here until the rest of the presentation really is just about the bumblebees that we have in the southeast region. And if you are from a state that is nearby, there's a chance that you have another species or two that we don't. I'm covering the bumblebees from North Carolina, Tennessee, South Carolina, and Georgia. If you're in Kentucky and Virginia, you have the same bees plus maybe one. If you're in like Alabama, Louisiana, you'll have the same bees minus the mountain species, same for Florida. So hopefully that covers most of you. If you're like located in the Northeast or the Midwest, you have a few more species that I'm not going to cover today. But some of our colleagues from the Midwest they also lead identification webinars sometimes, and they have some great resources on identifying Midwest bumblebees as well. So here we go for our Southeast species. The common eastern bumblebee. This is this is a very aptly named bumblebee because it truly is the most common. I think around 2/3 of our all of our verified bees last season were common eastern bumblebees. So they make up a really large percentage of the bumblebees that we have here. They're also relatively easy to identify, which is nice. So for each bee, you'll see a slide kind of like this. So the main thing that you really want to be looking for is I'm going to turn on this little laser pointer for a second. Ooh, maybe the pen. I'm going to turn on the pen. So this little box up here is where you're going to see maybe the most diagnostic characteristic for that bee. So that means, yes, the thorax could look a certain way, but maybe that's not the best way to identify it because it's variable. And this is the box that's going to say, these are the first things that I look for when I'm identifying this bee. And then you'll see a couple different images so we have this illustration. This is from our Bumblebee Atlas illustrations. These are great. And then I have also created just this kind of other way to look at specifically the abdomen for what coloration you're looking for. And then I'll always include a photo of the bee. So this is how you can expect the pages to be laid out. And then there's also going to be other photos. So for a common eastern bumblebee, I'm looking first at the abdomen, and I'm looking to see is T1 yellow and the rest black. And that's how you tell a common eastern bumblebee. The males and the females look the same in terms of their general color pattern, although the males are, again, shaggier and they have more yellow on the face. But the abdomen coloration is the same, and this is our only bumblebee in the southeast region that has just T1 yellow, the rest black. The thorax is variable, and I would say it's not very useful in identification. So here's a couple more images of common easterns. The female on the left, again, you can see just segment one. So this is like tergite number one here, and then the rest are black. And you might see that it kind of has this like W shape, but that's actually just the shape of the segment itself. That's not, some people get this confused for like the two-spotted bumblebee, but this is all the first segment. This is all one segment here. So this is T1. And then the rest are black. And then the image on the right is the male Bombus impatiens common eastern, and this is not a great photo for identification, but luckily this volunteer submitted multiple photos of different angles, but I wanted to show you this angle to show you how yellow the face is. It's very yellow, it's very shaggy, And again, we have this hind leg that is thin and it's shiny, but it's convex. It's not concave, which is another good example of a male hind leg that does not have a pollen basket. So this is the common eastern bumblebee. This is one, if you've done any bumblebee surveys, you're probably pretty familiar with already. The next is the two-spotted bumblebee, and I'm going over the three most common at the very beginning. So two-spotted bumblebee is another common bumblebee. Like the common eastern, it's found throughout our entire region. And the thorax on this bee is yellow with a small black dot. That dot is usually pretty small, and the rest of the thorax is all yellow. The abdomen has T1 that is yellow, and then T2 has this kind of W shape, aka the two spots. Then the rest of the abdomen is black. And so the females do often look different than the males, but this is what you can expect to find for a female. It's also a well-named bumblebee, it has the two spots, and that's what you're looking for. So here's a couple more images of a two-spotted, and that W shape is not always as pronounced, but you can see this is still a W. But what you are looking for here is that rather than being a true like crescent, which is something that, I wonder if I can take this off. Oh, I can erase it. Hmm. Okay, maybe I won't use the pen that much. But anyway, rather than being a true crescent, which is true for some of our other bees, where the coloration would start at this edge and just make a like a more of a round crescent shape. This bee really only has yellow coloration right at the middle, and it's still making that W, even though it's not quite as pronounced. So this is another good example of a two-spotted, again with the wings open. That's a really essential because you can see on the right, this is a bumblebee that I couldn't identify the species. And that's because the wings are covering that second, really all of the segments of the abdomen, or at least the first three. And so I'm assuming T1 is going to be fully yellow, but I can't see whether that second segment has just a little W of yellow, whether it has any yellow. Maybe it's just got kind of like long hair on T1. So this photo on the right would not be helpful for identification. But if you sent in this photo and then another one where it was flying or something, you got a better image of under the wings, that would be helpful for IDing it. Okay. And then the male two-spotted does look different than the female. So it can look the same. It can have the first segment of yellow and then the two spots, the W. It's gonna have more yellow on the head, definitely. So male two-spotteds always have quite a bit of yellow on their face, also shaggy. They're kind of like longer haired bees in general, medium-sized to small bees. And the other way that the male can look is it can have a lot more yellow on it. So it can have T1 being yellow, T2 could be yellow, and then also it often has more yellow down in here. So it can have yellow again, kind of on the sides of T4 and T5. What you often see with the two-spotted is that there's this whole section right on T3 that's very black, and it kind of stands out as almost like a lack of yellow that's happening. So I'll show you a couple images of male two-spotted bumblebees. So here's a few. You can see here's this like black strip kind of in the middle that I was talking about. And then there's a lot of yellow that happens on some of the lower segments. So this is a male. You can also see how yellow its face is. It's just kind of a shaggy haired bee. And then again on the right, this one looks like it could be quite a few of our species here. We have quite a few that have a yellow on T1 and T2, but this is identified a as a two-spotted, probably because there was a better angle that included its cheek length and also the coloration on its face. So this is another way that male two-spotteds can look. Okay, and then the other most common bumblebee we have here is the brown-belted bumblebee. I'm sure many of you have seen this one as well out in the field. So the abdomen has T1 that is yellow, and then T2 usually has a crescent of brown. So rather than just having brown right in the middle, the crescent usually reaches from like one side to the other side like this. And I should say that crescent can be brown, brown belted, but it can also be pretty yellow. Sometimes you might not see any brown at all and it's just yellow, but that crescent shape is a good way of telling that you're seeing a brown belted. They also have shorter hair than the two spotted. They're more just like sheared looking and they're bigger. And then T3 through T6 is black again. So you can tell our three most common bumblebees actually all look pretty similar. They have very black abdomens and then yellow on T1 and then something else happening on T2. So a couple images of brown belteds. So on the left, this is a brown belted bumblebee. Again, it has that shorter hair and it has a crescent shape, but this time it's yellow and it's not brown, but this is indeed a brown belted bumblebee. And then the image on the right is a male brown belted. And I want to point this one out because its eyes are so big. So this is one of the two species that we have in the Southeast where the males do have larger eyes. So this can be a really helpful tool for identifying if, for example, you're like, oof, I just can't tell if that's a crescent or if that's like two spots. Just not sure if I can tell. You could always look at eye size if it's a male to see if you have a brown belted or a two spotted. Two spotted males just have normal sized eyes. So those I would say are the three most common species that I would imagine many of you have encountered before. And now we're going to move on to a new category, which is bees that have T1 on that have black on T1, or they're mostly black on T1. And then they have this thick band of yellow, which is T2 and T3. So I would say the first two on here, the black and gold and the American, are two bees that are really tricky to tell apart, and I'm gonna give you a hint as to how to do that. And then the yellow banded, although it follows a similar color pattern, it has a smaller, like almost rounder body shape, and it inhabits a different elevation. So you're not likely to get that one mixed up with the other two, but they do all have this kind of similar like stripe in the middle of yellow kind of abdomen. And they also all have like relatively black thorax. So the black and gold bumblebee. This is a bigger bumblebee. It's kind of like boxy looking. It can be found in most places, although you wouldn't find it like high elevation, but you can find it in the foothills, Piedmont, and the coastal plain. Um, it's not super common, but it's not like one of our rare species. The main thing you really want to look at for a black and gold bumblebee is the vertex. And the vertex again is like the back, it's almost like the neck, the back of the head. And you want to see if you see yellow hair there or not. So make sure you're getting that image when you take a photo. And you can see in our photo here, T1 is fully black, T2 and T3 are yellow, and then the rest is black. And then we have our American bumblebee. So let's just look at these two photos again. So we have the photo of black and gold, and then the photo of the American. So you can see they're really similar looking. The main thing you're looking for again is the vertex. And the vertex on the American bumblebee, and by the way, this is only true for female Americans. Males have a totally different look to them. So female American bumblebees have black on the vertex. So you want to make sure you get a photo of the vertex. Um, Another thing that's different between the two is T1. So this here is half black and half yellow. So on the black and gold bumblebee, that's almost exclusively black. You should see just black. Whereas on the American bumblebee, there's often quite a bit of yellow on T1. So just to drive this point home, if you have one of these two bumblebees, make sure you get a photo of the vertex. There can be a mix of black and yellow hairs, but if there's any yellow hairs at all, it's a black and gold bumblebee, and then black hair means it's an American bumblebee. Okay, here's a little quiz. This is the same bee, but from different angles. So it's not a, there's just one bee here, same species. Do you think this is an American or a black and gold? So I'll give you a second to think about what we just talked about. This is an American bumblebee. And why I know that is because it has black hairs on the vertex. It has no yellow, it's a fully black vertex. Another good little hint here is look at this T1. I can see between the wings is T1, and look how much yellow is on that T1. If this were black and gold, I would not expect to see that much yellow at all. So this is an American bumblebee, female. Again, female. Look at this is another image of a pollen basket. Not as great, but it has that nice triangle. Okay, and then the last one in this category is a yellow banded bumblebee, Bombus terricola. Oh, you know what? I should say also, going back a little bit, sorry, that the American bumblebee is one of our species of conservation concern. This is the first one we've talked about. This is our most commonly found species of conservation concern here in the Southeast, but it is known to have a declining population, and it's one that we are trying to learn more about and just continue tracking so we can see what its habitat needs really are. So then moving on, sorry, here we go to the yellow banded bumblebee, Bombus terricola. This is another species of conservation concern. This is a species that you would only find in the high elevation of the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee. So really this species has a range that is more north. We're like at the very edge of its range here, and that's why it's only found in those like much cooler climates. Um, but it is here, and it has again a similar color pattern where you're seeing T1 is black, T2 and T3 are yellow. But something that is unique to Bombus terricola is that on T5 there is some yellow just on the very back of T5. So I think I can show you that here. And that's something you're definitely going to want to look for. Also, the front of the thorax is always yellow on this species. So here's a couple other images where you can see yellow, two segments, or sorry, black, two segments of yellow, black again, but then there's that kind of yellow, very small band or like fringe on T5. That is Bombus terricola. Okay, so we just went over maybe almost half of our species here, maybe a little less than half. So do we have any questions at this point? It looks like not. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna keep going then. Okay, so moving on to our next category, which are big, charismatic bumblebees that have T1 and T2, yellow or orange. These are both big. These are maybe as big as the black and gold bumblebee, much bigger than, say, like a two-spotted or a common eastern. Um, let's dive into them. So the southern plains bumblebee is another species of conservation concern. This is another species. We do find this regularly in our region, but it has a declining population. It's a species we're concerned about. And it's found in the coastal plain, it's found in the Piedmont, and it's found in like the western Tennessee plains into Missouri and into like Louisiana and also all the way into the real plains. Um, this species has a thick black band between the wings, so that's something you're definitely going to want to look for with this species. It also has this really buzz cut looking hair. It has hair that is short, and it's kind of like obviously short compared to our other bumblebees. And then T1 and T2 are yellow. You wouldn't expect to see yellow on any of the other segments. So here's another couple images of the Southern Plains bumblebee. The photo on the left, I just want to show you what an interesting body shape this bumblebee has. First of all, it just looks heavy. It's big. It has like a very long, square body, and that's something that's really consistent with this bumblebee. And then on the right is an image of a male, and you can see this is the other male that we have that has bulging eyes. Its eyes are even bigger than the brown-belted bumblebee's eyes. These are bees that you can often find just like sitting on the top of a flower, waiting to catch a female that flies by during mating season. So this is the Southern Plains bumblebee. And then the other bee in this category is the rusty patch bumblebee. This is our only federally endangered species in the eastern US. It has not been seen in the southeast in 25 years. When it was found in the mountains of of all of our mountain states in the south had the rusty patch bumblebee. It was once a very common bumblebee. Um, the last place it was seen was in Great Smoky Mountain National Park on like Andrews Bald, or one of the highest points in the park. This is a species that in some ways really maybe helped start the Southeast Bumblebee Atlas because there's just a lot of interest in finding out more about where it's living in the Southeast and if it is still found here. I will say it is still found in Virginia, in the mountain area of Virginia. This species has been found somewhat regularly for the last few years. The real bulk of its range is in the Midwest, in like Minnesota and Wisconsin. This species is more commonly found. Still rare, still federally endangered, but that's where it's found more frequently. Okay, so the thorax. What you're looking for is this interesting shape we call it a thumbtack, and it's this shape that exists between the wings that's like a band with a little triangle. And then on the abdomen, another well-named bumblebee, the rusty patched bumblebee, it has yellow on T1. It has a crescent shape of orange on T2 that is all surrounded by yellow hair. So the way you can tell this from the brown-belted bumblebee, or other bumblebee species that has like orange hair in this area, is that it's surrounded entirely by yellow in the rusty patch bumblebee. However, the queens do look different. The rusty patch queens do not have a rusty patch. They have T1 and T2 that is full yellow, and they do not have the chevron. They have more of this black, dot between their wings. So that is worth noting. Okay, and now moving on to two of the most frustrating and adorable bees in the southeast, the half-black bumblebee and Sanderson's bumblebee. Small, yes, they are fluffy. They both live in the mountains in the same exact range, and then their T1 and T2 are yellow. So we have the half-black bumblebee on the left, and although you can see maybe the illustrations of these two look like, those seem like you could just tell them apart. They're both so variable that coloration alone is not a way that we can successfully identify these bumblebees. We actually have to use a totally different characteristic that I'll talk about now. But I do want to point out, if you live in the mountains or the foothills, Bombus vagans, half-black bumblebee in particular, is not like a particularly rare bumblebee. It's relatively common at higher elevation. And then the Sanderson's bumblebee is not as commonly found. We're really at the edge of its range here. So the way that we tell these two species apart is by their cheek length. And so this is just a little example of different cheek lengths of bees that we have here. So we have bees that have short cheeks. So the cheek is from the bottom of the eye to like the top of the mandible, really. So from here to here, we're looking at this area in here. And oops. So this would be a short-cheeked bee. An example of this is the brown-belted bumblebee. Also, the rusty patch bumblebee has a short cheek. And we call these like heart-shaped faces because they are so short and wide. They kind of do look like a heart. We have bees that have medium-length cheeks. An example of this would be Sanderson's and Vagans. These both have medium cheeks. They're about as long as they are broad. And then we have long-cheeked bumblebees like the yellow bumblebee that have this more like horsey face, we say. Also, there's quite a few that have that long cheek. So getting the cheek length is really, really important. It's actually essential for identifying Bombus vagans from Sanderson's, the half black from Sanderson's, but for many species, it can be a really, really good way for us to tell species apart, especially if you didn't get all of the other important features. The cheek length just really helps us say, oh yeah, it definitely is that species because it has a long cheek. So for the half black and Sanderson's, just another pitch to make sure you get the cheek. The half black bumblebee has a cheek that is slightly longer than it is broad. So this is a longer faced bee. It probably is between the medium and the long, in terms of the chart I was just showing. Um, Getting a photo this good is really almost impossible, but a photo not quite as good is still enough for us to identify these two species apart. And then the Sandersons on the right is a cheek that is as long as broad, so it should be more of like a square cheek rather than a long cheek. And this is only true for females. For males, we actually measure antennal length, which is even quite complicated as well. But for the females, we do need the cheek length. So here are some examples of my own photos just to show you how hard it can be to get the cheek length. These are photos that I took in the field while trying to make sure that I got the cheek because I knew I had either a half black or a Sanderson's. The first two were fails for different reasons. The first one, it's just in the shadow. Like the lighting's not right. The angle's great, lighting's not right. So I can't actually see what length that cheek is. The second one, again, maybe the angle could have been pretty good, but it's blurry, so I can't see it. And then this photo on the right, this was a winner. So this is a really great cheek shot. You don't always have to have one quite this good, but this is a good way that we can say this cheek length is longer, so it looks longer this way than it is broad this way. So this was determined to be a half black bumblebee. Okay, do we have any questions about cheek length or anything else that we just covered? Looks like we don't. Okay. Well, I think the last time for questions is probably at the very end. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in here and we will get to those. All right. Let's move on to our very yellow bees. These are all relatively large. I would say the confusing bumblebee actually isn't too large, but the yellow and the American are both big yellow bees. The confusing bumblebee is a small, fuzzy yellow bee. But they do really strike you as very yellow when they fly by. All right. The confusing bumblebee. As you can imagine by the name, this one can be a real challenge to identify. And the reason for that is it's just highly variable. It can look a lot of different ways and it can look like a lot of different species. This is one that we also only see in the mountains. You might be thinking, why are there so many more species in the mountains? And this is just like a general pattern of bumblebee diversity where highest diversity of bumblebees are higher elevation and higher latitude. So think of like the Rocky Mountain West and the Pacific Northwest and like the high mountains in California. Also, high latitude like Minnesota and Canada. Those places all have a higher bumblebee diversity than we do in the southeast, but our area of highest diversity is the mountains. So quite a few of these species are really only found in the mountains. So let's talk about the confusing bumblebee. The thorax is all yellow, usually. It can sometimes have a little black dot, which makes it confusing. But for some of the more complicated or more confusing morphs, it often has black under the wings. And that's something that you really want to make sure you get a photo of. The abdomen always has yellow on T1 and T2, and sometimes it can be like fully yellow, but the last 4 through 6 are always black. So for the confusing bumblebee, you do want to get under the wing because one of the species that this can be commonly confused with is the two-spotted bumblebee. Um, Especially because certain morphs of the confusing bumblebee actually like have two spots pretty much. And so the confusing bumblebee has black hairs under the wing for these morphs, and the two-spotted is always going to have a fully yellow thorax, including under the wing. So that's an important thing to remember when you're taking photos. It also has a shorter cheek, which is helpful. And then the yellow bumblebee. Okay, this is a species that's another one of our species of conservation concern. Although it is a species that's relatively common in the western US. Here in the east, we don't have as many of these individuals. They have declining populations, and this is a species that we're concerned about its population status. So, again, this is a species we find in the mountains here in our region. It has this thick, or sorry, not thick, thin but prominent black band between the wings. This is a good way to think you might have a Bombus fervidus, this yellow bumblebee, is if you see that band, that like distinctive kind of thin black band between the wings. T1 through T4 are yellow, and then T5 and T6 are black. So it looks mostly yellow except for the couple last like little segments there that are sometimes hard to see. This is the yellow bumblebee. And then a confusing lookalike is the male American bumblebee. So we talked about the female American before that has a lookalike with the black and gold bumblebee, but the male also has a lookalike, and that's with the yellow bumblebee. So it may or may not have this like black band between the wings. It can have that band that looks similar to the yellow bumblebee, but what it does have is it always has some black on the side of the thorax under the wing. Similar to what we just talked about with the confusing bumblebee. Looking under the wing for black hairs is really, really important here, and this is one of the main ways I often tell these two species apart. And then the other kind of giveaway is it has orange on T7, or what we call the tail. So if you see like a little puff of orange there at the back, that's a good way to tell you have an American bumblebee. They also have really long antennae. So males in general have long antennae, longer than females. They have an extra segment. But I've noticed that American males just have extra long antennae. It's something that always stands out to me when I see photos of them. So what you're looking for between these two, yellow under the wing for a yellow bumblebee, black under the wing for an American, and then also, is there any orange on the tail, which would be a sign that you have an American bumblebee. Okay, here's our quiz. This is a male. Again, we see this, although it doesn't look like it's a particularly thin leg, it is rounded and it's hairy throughout. This is a male. Knowing it's a male, this could be either a yellow or an American bumblebee. So take a second to think about which one it is. This is an American. Here we have black on the sides of the thorax. It's a lot of black. Sometimes it's not even that much, but that's pretty obvious. That's a lot of black hair under the wing. And it also has this little puff of orange on the very end of its abdomen. So this is an American male. Of the two, you're much more likely to see an American male. They're just more common in our region, and they're especially common later in the season, like in August and September. We get a lot of observations of this species. So our last group of bees in the southeast that we're going to cover and that exist here are the cuckoo bumblebees. I mentioned that they do not have pollen baskets because they don't. There's no workers for cuckoo bees. Another species is doing all the work for them, so they don't have a pollen basket. So that's not something you would look at. The females do have thicker legs than the males, but there's no like true pollen basket. Um, Cuckoo bees often have this kind of like curved abdomen. Not always true, but if you see a curved abdomen, it might point cuckoo to you in your brain. The yellow on the abdomen is often more concentrated on the sides of the abdomen than it is in the middle. So rather than having like a crescent or these two spots in the middle, like we kind of see with non-cuckoo bumblebees, when there's a coloration, it's often more concentrated in the middle, but on cuckoos, it's more actually on the sides. And then all of the females of our cuckoo bees here in the southeast have really black abdomens that are fully black or black with like a small amount of yellow. And then the males are a little bit more variable. So, our first and most common cuckoo here in the region is the lemon cuckoo, Bombus citrinus. This species has so this is a female, this is a queen because there's no workers, all the females are queens. I will say queens, in my experience, are seen less frequently. I think we get less observations of queens than we do males because, probably because they're in the nest more and then, the males emerge and they're like flying all over looking for a mate. And so I would say I've seen a lot more Bombus citrinus males than I have queens, but then we do get observations of queens. So the thorax is mostly yellow, and then the abdomen is mostly black. But the black can be kind of shiny, almost like carpenter bee-esque, um, because the hair is just sparse. It's almost like see-through because it's just sparsely haired on the abdomen. But what you will see is some amount of yellow on T3. And T3, the yellow might just be on the sides, or it might be covering the whole segment. And then the male looks pretty different. Male Bombus citrinus. Oh, and this species, by the way, is found throughout our region, um, but I would say concentrated really in the Piedmont is where we see the most. Piedmont and foothills is where we see the most lemon cuckoos. So one interesting thing about the species is the thorax has that kind of chevron or thumbtack shape, similar to what we saw with the rusty patch bumblebee. But this is a really key way that I always think, oh, I bet it's a cuckoo. Because sometimes this bee, I don't see it too often. It can kind of like escape my mind wondering what it is. But when I see that thumbtack shape, I'm thinking, oh, you know what? I bet it's a cuckoo. So that's just something to look for. The abdomen on these males is T1 and T2 are usually yellow, but it can kind of be like a weird see-through yellow. And then sometimes T3 is yellow, and again, it can have that like see-through yellow look, or maybe just have yellow on the sides. And then something I also see is that um, like here, when I made this illustration, I put this in here. They can sometimes have these black cutouts on the top of T2. And then T3, sometimes the yellow can really be more concentrated here on the sides. So I'll show you a couple more images. So these are both male Bombus citrinus. Again, you can see this kind of like interesting shape up here. And then we have this cutout of black hair here, which is interesting. And the black hair also looks like it's kind of like interspersed among a lot of hairs on T2. It's not like full yellow. And then we have this like phenomenon again that happens in cuckoos where we have more yellow on like the sides than we do in the middle for T3. They also have like heart-shaped faces. They have sweet little faces, cuckoo bees, and they have thick heads is another way to tell them apart, which is something I find to only be so helpful. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not. In this case, this on the right, that does look like it has a rather thick head. So that is our lemon cuckoo. Next is Fernald's cuckoo, Bombus flavidus. This is a really interesting species because it's one of our most broadly ranging species, like in the world. But here in the eastern U.S. and specifically in in like the mountain region of the eastern US, we have a subspecies, Bombus flavidus appalachiensis. So we have an endemic subspecies. So this is another bee that we're really interested in learning more about, figuring out like what its habitat needs are. It's a species that we only find in the mountains at really high elevation. But when you get to high elevation, if you were to go do a survey in the Smokies or some of the national forests in North Carolina, you could definitely find this species. It has black on T2 and yellow on T4. Those are the main ways you can tell a queen. Again, queens I see less than I see males. And they have this really strongly recurved abdomen. So by that I mean it just has this really like curved shape to it, unlike other bumblebees that you would see more like flat. So that's the queen. And then the male, I think the male can be a little hard to tell, but again, I'm looking for that chevron shape again, that like kind of thumbtacky shape. And I'm looking for orange on T7. That's something that I think is a really good way that I think, it could be Bombus flavidus because I do see orange on T7. And it has that chevron shape, so I know it's not an American male bumblebee. But in general, they have yellow on T1, they have yellow on T4, and then T2 and 3 might have some amount of yellow but aren't fully yellow. Again, also like a curved abdomen. And then moving on to our very last species, this is the variable cuckoo. This is a species that hasn't been seen in North America in the last like 30 years. We're on the lookout for this species, and whether it's here or not, we don't fully know. That's what we're trying to figure out. Um, this species looks similar, male and female, so this is just generally what they look like. I've never seen one. I've just seen photos and images, but one thing to look for is that there's black on the sides of the thorax under the wings, and that there's a fully black abdomen, but it's black and hairy. You know, it's not like a carpenter bee with a black abdomen that is hairless. It is a hairy abdomen, and again, you're looking for that black under the wings. So those are our bees. We have a little quiz. I want to give you a few minutes to do this, and if you want to type your guesses in the chat, I think that could be fun. But if you don't want to, no worries. No one's going to judge you. We're all still learning. And I didn't just give you the easiest species possible. I tried to make it a little challenging for you. So I'm going to give you like 3 minutes or so to look at these bees, and or maybe 4 minutes, and see if you can identify them. You don't have to tell male from female in any of these. So Michelle just put a link in the chat that I wanted everyone to see. Thank you for doing that. This has our print materials on it. Our print materials page, which has this guide on it of the most common morphs of the bumblebees in our region. I just wanted you all to have access to that, because again, it's a lot of info. Okay, you know what? People had some amazing guesses, so y'all definitely learned something, or you already knew this. So I'm really impressed. I can see number two was the tricky one, and I knew it would be. So I'm gonna go over what we have here. We have the first is a brown belted bumblebee. This, I think a lot of you already knew. You can see we have this nice crescent shape of relatively brown color. It's kind of orangey. Um, Bonus points if you notice these bulging eyes. So this is, and the super yellow face. This is a male brown belted bumblebee. Pretty straightforward. Number two is a lemon cuckoo. This is a tough one. The main way I thought you might have an idea that this is a cuckoo, which some of you said, is this awesome chevron shape right here. It's a real good chevron of black. Also, you can see this is T1 is yellow, T2 is yellow, and then on T3 we have this nice cuckoo giveaway where really the sides are a lot more yellow and the middle is black. So this is a male, this is a lemon cuckoo. Number three is the Southern Plains. One way that you can immediately think, oh my gosh, look how like short-haired that bee is. It's a buzz cut bee. That's a good indication it's Southern Plains. Also, we have this nice black band between the wings, and then T1 and T2 are yellow. So we have T1 fully yellow, T2 fully yellow, and then the rest are black. And it's also just kind of this like interesting, like square shaped bee. Oops. Which is another way that I think of the Southern Plains looking. And then the last, y'all got it right. This is a two-spotted. This is way more how you're actually going to likely see bees, right? They're kind of flying around and buzzy looking, blurry looking, just hard to see, but two-spotted is a pretty good one to see when it's flying. You can just see that nice W shape with the two spots. So you got that one right. Okay, great job. If you're still learning and you didn't know all those, absolutely no worries. You can always come back and watch this again. I also want to point out our other resources. These are ways that I have learned so much about bumblebees. The guide on the left is Bumblebees of North America. Actually, one of our colleagues at Xerces is a co-author on this book, and it has all the morphs that you could ever want. It has good habitat maps, descriptions. There's even like a dichotomous key in there you can use. So this book you would have to purchase. But then on the right, we have bumblebees of the eastern US. This is also, you can find this on our website. And this is a book with, it's a free PDF you can, download that has all these morphs as well and is a really great resource for free. So I do want to acknowledge our partners. We really do need to thank all these people who believe in the work that we do and make this possible. So I just want to say thank you to them and to our partners that make our work possible in all of our different regions that we work in. So it looks like we have about 5 minutes. Oh, that went longer than I thought it was going to. But we do have 5 minutes for questions. So I'm going to see if anybody has any questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Oops. I think. Oh, you know what? I can't figure that out. So no worries. I will just keep sharing my screen. I do see a question. Okay, question. How do you learn these? By seeing lots and maybe as you're following the Atlas protocol, catching, cooling. Yeah. How do we learn these? I mean, like I said, we at Xerces are in a unique position to learn these because we look at photos of bumblebees for like a months at a time. So that is how I learned these. However, I was a Bumblebee Atlas volunteer before I worked for Xerces actually, and I went out and I caught bumblebees and I photographed them. I took some really bad photos and I realized that they weren't able to be identified. I got the response like, "Ooh, sorry, I just can't tell which species that is." And that was a way for me to realize like, okay, so they're looking at for figuring out the species they're looking at like cheek length. That's something I really have to remember to get a good photo of. I also think the quick guide that we put in the chat is a really, really good way to learn the most common morphs. And I will say, everything on there is like 90% of what you're gonna see. I showed some other morphs. I made this complicated. You're likely gonna see like six main species, maybe like eight main species where you live, and you're gonna see the most common morphs of the females. And often the males and the females look the same, so you don't have to worry about deciding if you have a male or female. Um, but yeah, when you submit your data to the Bumblebee Atlas, we we tell you what it is. So that's another really good way to learn. And even if you aren't in the region of the Southeast Bumblebee Atlas, you can still submit your incidental observations. You can still submit any bumblebee photos you want. We try to get to them, to these other states as well to identify those bees. Okay, next question. Do you have a way to subdue the bees for closer identification in a way that they recover? Yeah, we do. That's a good question. So if you aren't familiar with our protocols, for the Bumblebee Atlas, we catch bees with a net. We put them in a vial, and we put that vial in a cooler that has crushed or cubed ice in it, and that cools the bees enough that we can take them out of the vial after like 10, 15 minutes. They're cool enough that we can get all these different angles. And a lot of the photos I showed you in this webinar were from that exact protocol. They recover really quickly, like sometimes too quickly that you can't get the photos you want, especially if it's hot out. And then they fly away, unharmed. So that is the way that we take bee photos for identification. We also have people that submit amazing photos of bees on flowers, and they know the angles to get, and we're able to identify a lot of those more like casual observations also, just with photos without putting them on ice. But putting them on ice is a more surefire way to get those key characters. Next question is, will the atlas be extended to any other states? At the current moment, we don't have plans to extend the atlas anywhere else in the East. However, this is the first year of the New Mexico Bumblebee Atlas, so if any of you live part-time in New Mexico, you might be excited to hear that. We are we are an organization that uses like partner money and federal money to fund staff to run the Atlas programs. And so having those funds available in those state partners, or sometimes it's like private foundations to fund someone like me to help organize volunteers, make the materials, lead trainings, and identify all the bees is how we end up extending to new states. We have people that are constantly working on trying to find funding. And so at the moment, we don't have plans to extend to any other states, but I think all of us would like to see that happen in the future. But of course, you can always submit your data too. If you're not in one of our states with an atlas, you can always still submit your data to us or reach out with a question. I'm happy to answer. Do we have anything else? It looks like all the questions. I think, let me just check the chat too. Oh, thanks for all the great comments. That's very sweet. Well, thanks y'all so much for coming. I guess we ended up going all the hour and a half, but I hope that was helpful. Oh, can I drop a link to part one? Yes, I can, if I can figure out how to stop sharing my screen. Um,
I can do
Michelle,
that, Avery.
thank you. Thanks. Um, yeah, part one is like more about our protocol, and we can definitely share that with you. Also, please feel free to check out the Bumblebee Atlas website. I'll just type that one in right here. Because we have so many resources on there for identification and for taking photos and for, oops, that was a direct message. And for just learning about our project and the results. And like we have so much awesome information on there that I definitely recommend checking that out as well. So, anyway, thanks so much everyone for being here. I hope you learned something. Always feel free to reach out if you have any other questions, and good luck photographing your bumblebees this season. And we hope to see you soon. All right, bye everybody.